The station was quiet. It had been quiet for a very long time. T floated inside the cryopod, his body still and cold. Ice crystals covered his skin like tiny diamonds. His heart beat once every few minutes, so slow that most machines would call him dead. But he was not dead. He was waiting. 300 years ago, T had been a normal man. He worked as an astronaut for the Korean Space Agency. He was 29 years old, single, and loved instant noodles more than anything in the world. His mother always said he was too quiet, too comfortable being alone. She worried about him, but T never saw his silence as a problem. He simply enjoyed his own company. The research station Horizon 7 had been his home for 2 years. It orbited a dead moon at the edge of known space. The crew studied strange signals coming from deep in the galaxy. There were 12 people on the station. T was the youngest. Then the emergency came. A solar storm hit without warning. The station's shields failed. Half the equipment was destroyed in minutes. The captain made a hard choice. They had to leave. The rescue ship could only carry 11 people safely. Someone had to stay behind and wait for another ship. T volunteered. He remembered his crewmates crying as they left. His best friend, a woman named Sue, held his hands through the airlock window. She promised they would come back for him. The rescue ship would arrive in 6 months. He just had to sleep and wait. T climbed into the cryopod and closed his eyes. The cold wrapped around him like a blanket. He dreamed of his grandmother's house, the smell of cooking rice, the sound of rain on old windows. He did not know that the rescue ship never came. He did not know that Earth lost contact with the outer colonies. He did not know that humanity scattered across the stars and forgot about one small station orbiting a dead moon. 300 years passed like a single breath. The Velith Empire found the station by accident. They were scanning old human territories, looking for resources and artifacts. The station appeared on their sensors as a cold, dead thing, but one of their scientists noticed something strange. There was a heat signature inside. Something was alive. Queen Sira ordered her royal vessel to investigate. Sira was not like other rulers. She was young for a queen, only 200 years old. Her people lived for thousands of years, so she was considered almost a child by Velith standards. But she was smart, curious, and brave. Her 4 silver eyes saw things others missed. Her tall body moved with grace and power. She wore robes of deep purple, the color of royalty. When her soldiers cut open the station's hull, they found dust and silence. The air was thin and cold. Old machines sat frozen in time. Human writing covered the walls, words in a language the Velith had studied but never fully understood. Then they found the cryopod. The soldier who opened it jumped back in shock. Inside was a human male, covered in ice, barely breathing. By all logic, he should be dead. Cryopods were not meant to work for 300 years. The power had failed long ago. There was no explanation for his survival. But there he was, alive. They carried T to the royal vessel. Doctors worked on him for hours. They warmed his blood slowly, fed nutrients into his veins, and monitored his brain activity. Queen Sira watched through the medical bay window, her 4 eyes never blinking. When T finally opened his eyes, he saw faces he did not understand. The Velith were tall and thin. Their skin was silver like polished metal. They had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. Their mouths were small, their voices musical and soft. They wore flowing clothes and moved like dancers. T tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. He tried to move, but his body was too weak. All he could do was watch. A Velith doctor leaned close and spoke in a language T had never heard. The sounds were beautiful but meaningless. T shook his head slowly. The doctor tried again in different languages, but none of them worked. Finally, Queen Sira entered the room. She walked to his bedside and looked down at him. T had never seen anyone so strange or so beautiful. Her silver skin glowed softly in the light. Her purple robes flowed like water. Her 4 eyes studied him with deep curiosity. She spoke, and her voice was like music. T still did not understand the words, but he understood her tone. She was not afraid of him. She was not angry. She was fascinated. Sira reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth. T flinched at first, but then he relaxed. In that moment, something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, just a feeling, a connection. Over the next few days, T began to recover. He ate strange foods that tasted like nothing on Earth. He drank water that sparkled with unknown minerals. He slept in a bed that floated in the air. The Velith gave him a translator device, a small thing that attached behind his ear. It took time to learn enough of their language to work properly. But slowly, word by word, T began to understand. He learned that Earth still existed, somewhere far away. But humanity had changed. They had spread across many worlds, fought many wars, and lost many colonies. The outer stations like Horizon 7 were forgotten. No one had searched for survivors in centuries. T was alone, the last human from his time. Everyone he knew was dead. He took this news quietly. The Velith doctors watched him, waiting for him to break, to scream, to cry. But T just sat by the window and looked at the stars. His face was calm. His breathing was steady. Queen Sira visited him that night. She sat beside him and looked at the same stars. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then she asked him a question through the translator. "How are you not broken?" T thought about this. He thought about his mother, who always worried about him being alone. He thought about Sue, who had held his hands before leaving. He thought about 300 years of cold and darkness. "I learned a long time ago," he said softly, "that being alone is not the same as being empty. I carry people with me, in my memories, in my heart. As long as I have that, I am never truly alone." Sira stared at him. Her 4 eyes were wide with wonder. She had searched 1,000 worlds for someone like him. Someone who could survive the thing her people feared most. Someone who could walk through darkness and come out whole. She had finally found him. "Hanti," she said, his name strange but beautiful in her musical voice. "I think you are exactly what my empire needs." T looked at her. He did not understand what she meant, but somewhere deep inside he felt that his long sleep was over. His real journey was just beginning. T learned the Velith language in 3 weeks. The doctors could not believe it. Other species took years to master even basic conversation. The Velith language was complex, full of tones and subtle sounds that most ears could not hear. But T listened carefully, practiced constantly, and refused to give up. Queen Sira visited him every day. At first, she came to observe him like a scientist watching an experiment. But soon, her visits became longer. She would sit with him for hours, teaching him words, answering his questions, and listening to his stories about Earth. T told her about Korea, his homeland. He described the mountains covered in cherry blossoms, the busy streets of Seoul, the quiet beaches of Busan. He told her about his grandmother, who raised him after his parents died. He told her about his friend Sue, who made him laugh even when he was sad. Sira listened to everything. Through her translator, the stories became real in her mind. She could almost smell the cherry blossoms, almost hear the waves on the beach. "Your world sounds beautiful," she said one evening. "It was," T replied. "I hope it still is." As weeks passed, whispers spread through the royal vessel. The court officials talked about the strange human who learned faster than anyone before him. The soldiers talked about his calm eyes and steady hands. The servants talked about how the queen spent so much time with him. Some were curious, some were jealous, some were afraid. But Sira did not care about whispers. She had bigger problems. One night she called T to her private chamber. The room was large and beautiful, filled with floating lights and soft music. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, showing thousands of stars and planets. Sira stood before the largest map. Her face was serious. "I must tell you the truth," she said. "My empire is dying." T walked to her side and looked at the map. Large sections were marked in black. "What are those dark areas?" he asked. "Dead zones," Sira said. "Planets that no longer exist. Civilizations that have been erased." She waved her hand and the map changed. It showed a moving darkness, spreading slowly across the galaxy like a disease. "We call it the Hollow," she explained. "It is not a creature. It is not a machine. It is something in between. It has been spreading for 10,000 years. Nothing can stop it." T watched the darkness move. Planet after planet disappeared into its shadow. "What does it do?" he asked. "It consumes consciousness," Sira said. "When the Hollow arrives, people do not die right away. First, they lose their connections. They forget their loved ones. They forget their names. They become hollow themselves, empty shells walking through empty cities, and then slowly they fade away." T felt a chill run down his spine. "That is terrible." "Yes," Sira agreed. "My people have fought it for generations. We have tried weapons, shields, and barriers. Nothing works. The Hollow does not care about physical things. It attacks the mind." She turned to face him. Her 4 eyes were full of pain and hope. "But there is one way to stop it," she continued. "At the center of the Hollow is its core. If someone can reach that core and destroy it, the Hollow will die. But the journey is impossible." "Why?" Sira moved to another part of the map. She showed a swirling vortex of darkness between the Velith territory and the Hollow's core. "We call this the Dark Passage," she said. "It is a dimension of pure emptiness. There is no light, no sound, no sensation. There is only solitude, complete and absolute solitude." T stared at the vortex. Somehow it looked familiar. "My people cannot survive it," Sira said, her voice breaking slightly. "The Velith mind needs connection. We need to feel others around us. When we are cut off, we break. Our sanity shatters within hours. I have sent hundreds of warriors into the Dark Passage. None of them came back whole." "How long does the passage take?" T asked. 40 days. 40 days of complete darkness. 40 days of absolute silence. 40 days alone." T closed his eyes. He remembered the cryopod. He remembered the cold and the quiet. He remembered 300 years of nothing. "You think I can survive it?" he said. It was not a question. Sira nodded slowly. "You already did. You survived 300 years in that station with no power, no warmth, and no company. Your mind should have broken, but it did not. You woke up calm and whole." She stepped closer to him. Her silver hand reached out and touched his chest, right above his heart. "There is something inside you," she whispered. "Something my people do not have. You can endure solitude without breaking. You can be alone without becoming hollow." T thought about her words. He thought about his quiet childhood, his peaceful nature, his comfort with silence. He had never seen these things as strengths. His mother had worried about them. His friends had not understood them. But now, an alien queen was telling him that these quiet parts of himself might save a galaxy. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Sira pulled back and stood tall. She looked like a queen again, powerful and ancient. "I want to select you," she said, "as my champion." T did not know what that meant, but he could hear the weight in her words. Sira explained. The selection was an old Velith tradition. When the Empire faced its greatest danger, the Queen would choose a champion to fight for her people. The selection created a bond between the Queen and the champion, linking their minds across any distance. "If I select you," Sira said, "we will be connected forever. I will feel what you feel. I will know if you are hurt or afraid or dying, and you will carry a piece of me with you even into the Dark Passage." T understood. The bond would give him an anchor, a connection that the Hollow could not break. "Why me?" he asked. There must be others, other humans, other species. Sira shook her head. We have tested thousands. None of them have what you have. None of them can hold on to themselves in complete isolation. She paused. And none of them have eyes like yours. T looked at her confused. My eyes. When I look at your eyes, Sira said softly, I see someone who has already walked through darkness. Someone who knows how to carry light inside himself. The room was quiet. The floating lights drifted gently around them. The map of the dying galaxy glowed on the walls. T looked at his hands. They were ordinary human hands, nothing special. He was not a warrior or a hero. He was just a man who was comfortable being alone. But maybe that was enough. He looked up at Sira. Her 4 eyes were watching him, waiting for his answer. In those strange, beautiful eyes, he saw fear and hope mixed together. She was not just a powerful queen. She was someone watching her people die, desperate for a way to save them. T had lost his world. He had lost his time. He had lost everyone he ever knew. He had nothing left to protect. But Sira had everything to lose, and she was asking for his help. T took a deep breath. I have already survived being alone, he said quietly. I can do it again. Sira's eyes widened. For a moment she looked like she might cry, but queens do not cry, so she simply smiled. She took both of his hands in hers. Her skin was cool against his warmth. Then I, Sira of the Velith Empire, select you, Hanti of Earth, as my champion. May our minds be bound across all distances. May our hearts beat as one. A light grew between their hands. T felt something enter his mind, soft and warm. It was Sira's presence, gentle but clear. He could feel her hope, her fear, her determination. And she could feel his calm, his memories, his quiet strength. The selection was complete. T was no longer alone, and he never would be again. The training began the next morning. T woke early and found a soldier waiting outside his room. She was different from the other Velith. Her skin was not pure silver but mixed with something warmer, almost golden. Her eyes were only 2 instead of 4, and they looked almost human. She introduced herself as Kang Yuri. T stared at her. Kang, that is a Korean name. My mother was human, Yuri said coldly. She was taken from Earth 60 years ago. She fell in love with a Velith commander. I am their daughter. Her voice was flat, without emotion. She looked at T like he was a problem she had to solve. I am your trainer, she continued. The Queen has ordered me to prepare you for the Dark Passage. I have trained many candidates before. They all failed. T nodded slowly. I understand. No, you do not understand, Yuri said sharply. They did not just fail, they broke. I watched strong warriors scream and tear at their own skin. I watched brilliant scientists forget their own names. The Dark Passage destroys everyone. She stepped closer, her 2 eyes burning into his. I do not know why the Queen chose you. You are thin, weak, and ordinary, but I will train you anyway, because I follow orders. T did not argue. He simply said, when do we start? The first weeks were physical training. T ran through endless hallways, climbed walls, and fought practice robots. Yuri pushed him hard, never showing mercy. When he fell, she did not help him up. When he bled, she did not offer medicine. The Dark Passage will not be gentle, she said. Neither will I. T accepted every challenge without complaint. He was not fast or strong, but he was steady. He never gave up. He never showed fear. Yuri watched him with confused eyes. She had trained warriors twice his size who broke after 3 days. But this quiet human kept going, day after day, without a single complaint. The second phase was mental training. Yuri took him to a special chamber deep inside the ship. It was called the isolation room. The walls were black and absorbed all sound. When the door closed, there was no light, no air movement, nothing. Go inside, Yuri ordered. Stay as long as you can. T stepped into the darkness. The door closed behind him. At first he felt nothing. The room was just empty. But as minutes passed, the emptiness grew heavier. It pressed against his mind like invisible hands. He could not see his own body. He could not hear his own breathing. He started to wonder if he even existed. Most candidates lasted 5 minutes before screaming. T stayed for 6 hours. When Yuri opened the door, she found him sitting calmly on the floor, eyes closed, a small smile on his face. "What were you doing in there?" she demanded. "Remembering," T said simply. "Remembering what?" "My grandmother's kitchen, the way she hummed while cooking, the smell of her soup on cold winter days." Yuri stared at him like he was speaking nonsense, but something in her expression changed. The coldness softened just a little. The training continued. Every day, T spent more time in the isolation room. Every day, he went deeper into the darkness. And every day, Yuri watched with growing amazement. Other candidates tried to fight the emptiness. They screamed, they ran, they beat their fists against the walls. But T did not fight. He accepted the darkness like an old friend. He filled it with memories, with songs, with stories he told himself. "I do not understand you," Yuri said one evening. They sat together in the ship's garden, surrounded by glowing alien flowers. "What do you not understand?" T asked. "The Velith mind cannot survive alone. We need connection, community, voices around us. When we are isolated, we feel like we are dying." She paused. "But you do not. Why?" T thought for a moment. "Humans are strange," he said. "We are social creatures. We need each other, but we are also alone inside our own heads. We spend our whole lives with only our own thoughts for company." He looked up at the artificial stars above the garden. "I think humans learn to make peace with loneliness. We carry our loved ones inside us. We talk to them in our minds. We remember their voices even when they are gone." Yuri was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "My mother used to do that. She would sit alone and smile at nothing. I thought she was crazy, but maybe she was just being human." T looked at her. "Do you miss her?" "She died 10 years ago," Yuri said softly. "She caught a sickness that Velith medicine could not cure. Human bodies are fragile." "I am sorry." Yuri shook her head. "Do not be sorry. She lived a good life. She loved my father. She loved me." A small smile crossed her face. "She taught me Korean. She said I should never forget where half of me comes from." T felt warmth spread through his chest. This cold, hard warrior was more human than she wanted to admit. As weeks passed, their relationship changed. Yuri stopped treating him like a problem and started treating him like a partner. They trained together, ate together, and talked for hours about Earth and the stars. Meanwhile, Queen Sira watched from a distance. Through their mental bond, she felt T growing stronger. She felt his calm spreading through his mind like roots through soil. And she felt something else too, a warmth whenever Yuri was near him. Sira was not jealous. She was a queen, and queens did not have time for such feelings. But she noticed, and she remembered. One night, Sira came to T while he was alone. He was standing by a window, looking at the distant stars. Through their bond, she could feel his thoughts. He was thinking about home, about cherry blossoms he would never see again, about people who had died centuries ago. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly, "remembering what you lost?" T did not turn around. "Sometimes, but it also keeps me alive." Sira walked to his side. Their reflections appeared in the window side by side, human and Velith, warm and cool, different in every way. "I have been queen for 50 years, she said. "In that time I have lost millions of subjects to the Hollow. I remember all of them. Their names, their faces, their dreams." T finally looked at her. Her 4 eyes were shining with unshed tears. "The weight of those memories should crush me," she continued. "But it does not, because I carry them with purpose. Their deaths will mean something. I will make sure of it." T nodded slowly. "We are more alike than I thought." Sira smiled sadly. Perhaps that is why I chose you." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars drift by. The training was almost complete. T had grown stronger, faster, and more prepared than anyone expected, but the final test was approaching. Tomorrow, Yuri would take him to the simulation chamber. She would show him what the dark passage truly felt like, and he would either prove himself or break like all the others. T did not feel fear, he felt ready. He had spent 300 years in darkness. He had survived the death of everything he knew. He had learned to carry light inside himself when there was none outside. Whatever waited in the dark passage, he would face it. Not alone, not anymore. With Sira in his mind and Yuri at his side, he would walk into the void. And he would walk out again. The news came like a punch to the stomach. 3 more Velith colonies had fallen to the hollow. 60 million people gone in a single week. The darkness was moving faster now, hungry and unstoppable. Queen Sira called an emergency meeting. The great hall was filled with generals, advisors, and nobles. They all wore the same expression of fear and despair. "We have no more time," Sira announced. "The champion must leave now." No one argued. They had run out of options. That night, T stood before the ship that would carry him into the dark passage. It was called the Last Dawn. It was small and fast, designed for a single mission that no one expected to succeed. Yuri came to him first. She was dressed in combat armor, a sword at her hip and determination in her eyes. "I am coming with you," she said. T shook his head. "It is too dangerous. The dark passage will." "I know what it will do," Yuri interrupted. "I have seen it break 1,000 warriors, but I am half human. Maybe that half can survive." She stepped closer, and for the first time, T saw vulnerability in her eyes. "My mother survived loneliness. She taught me to carry people inside my heart. I want to test if her lessons were enough." T could not argue with that. He simply nodded. 2 more crew members joined them. Bora was a young Velith engineer, small and eager, who had studied human culture for years. She had chosen a human name because she admired their stubbornness. The second was Captain D, an old soldier with scars on his silver skin. He had volunteered because he was tired of watching his people die. Queen Sira came to see them off. She walked to T and took his hands. Through their bond, he could feel her fear, her hope, and something deeper that she did not name. "Come back to me," she whispered. T smiled gently. "I will, I promise." Sira stepped back, and the crew boarded the Last Dawn. The ship launched into the stars. For 2 days, they traveled through normal space, watching the galaxy shrink behind them. Then they reached the edge of the dark passage. It looked like a wound in reality, a swirling mass of nothing, darker than any shadow, colder than any ice. Light did not enter it. Sound did not escape it. It simply existed, ancient and terrible. "Beginning entry sequence," Bora said, her voice trembling. Captain D gripped his weapon. "May our ancestors guide us." Yuri looked at T. He nodded at her, calm and steady. The Last Dawn plunged into the darkness. At first there was nothing. The ship moved forward, but there were no stars, no reference points, nothing to show they were still alive. The screens went black. The sensors stopped working. Only the internal lights remained, small and fragile against the infinite void. Then the silence came. It was not normal silence. It was absolute silence. No engine noise, no breathing sounds, no heartbeat. T could see his crew members' mouths moving, but he heard nothing. The dark passage had swallowed all sound. The crew communicated through written notes and hand signals. They tried to stay calm. They tried to maintain routines. But hour by hour, the emptiness ate at their minds. Captain D was the first to break. On the 5th day, T found him sitting in the corner, staring at nothing. His silver eyes were wide and empty. He had scratched words into the wall with his fingernails. "I am not here. I am not here. I am not here." T tried to reach him, but D did not respond. His mind had already slipped away. Bora lasted longer. She read her human history books over and over. She wrote notes to T about Earth, asking questions, seeking connection. But on the 20th day, she stopped writing. She stopped moving. She just sat in her chair, breathing slowly, seeing nothing. T held her hand and spoke words she could not hear, but it was too late. Bora had become hollow. Only T and Yuri remained. They spent every moment together. T talked constantly, even though his voice made no sound. He moved his lips, shaped the words, and Yuri read them. He told her about his childhood, about running through rice fields as a boy, about his grandmother teaching him to cook, about Sue and their friendship, and how she had held his hands before he went to sleep for 300 years. Yuri listened. She wrote back. She told him about her mother, about growing up between two worlds, about feeling like she never belonged anywhere. Somewhere in the darkness, they found something neither expected. Not love, not yet, but understanding, connection. Two lonely people holding onto each other while the universe tried to erase them. But the dark passage was patient. It did not need to hurry. On the 30th day, Yuri started to struggle. Her Velith half screamed for connection. It needed to feel others, to sense the great web of minds that her people shared. But there was nothing here. No web, no minds, just emptiness. Her human half whispered to endure. It remembered her mother's calm face, her gentle songs, her quiet strength. But the whisper was getting weaker. Yuri wrote a note and handed it to T. "I am losing myself." T took her hands. He looked into her eyes, two human eyes in a half-alien face. He spoke words she could not hear but could read on his lips. "Stay with me, just a little longer." He did not let go of her hands. Not for sleep, not for food, not for anything. He held on to her like an anchor, giving her something real to focus on. He told her stories, endless stories, about Korean legends and heroes, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about his grandmother's belief that the strongest people are the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who endure without complaint. "You are strong," he said, shaping each word carefully. "Your mother made you strong, and I will not let you break." Yuri held onto his hands like they were the only real things in the universe. Maybe they were. Day 39, almost there. T could feel the core ahead. Through his bond with Sierra, he sensed her distant presence, faint but steady. She was waiting for him. She believed in him. But Yuri was fading fast. Her eyes were losing focus. Her grip was getting weaker. T pulled her close. He pressed his forehead against hers. In that moment, he poured everything he had into her. All his memories, all his warmth, all his stubborn human hope. "I will not let you go," he promised. "We are almost there." On day 40, the last dawn emerged from the dark passage. Light flooded the screens. Sound returned in a rush. T gasped as reality snapped back into place. They had made it. Before them floated a massive structure, ancient and terrifying. It was the heart of the Hollow, a machine built by a civilization long dead. It pulsed with dark energy, sending waves of emptiness into the galaxy. Yuri stirred in his arms. Her eyes opened slowly, confused but aware. "We made it," she whispered, her voice rough from weeks of silence. "We made it," T confirmed. He helped her to her feet. Behind them, Captain D and Bora remained lost in their own minds. They could not be saved. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But T could still save everyone else. He looked at the Hollow's core. Somewhere inside that structure was the key to ending the nightmare. He just had to find it. "Stay here," he told Yuri. "Guard the ship, guard them." Yuri grabbed his arm. "You cannot go alone." "I have to." He touched the place above his heart. "But I will not be alone. Sierra is with me. She has always been with me." Yuri looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Come back," she said. "That is an order." T smiled. "Yes, Commander." He put on a space suit, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the ship. The Hollow's core waited for him, massive and dark. The final battle was about to begin. The Hollow's core was not what T expected. He floated through a massive doorway into a chamber older than any star. The walls were covered in strange writing, symbols from a language that had been dead for millions of years. Machines hummed quietly in the darkness, still working after all this time. At the center of the chamber, something waited for him. It was not a monster. It was not a demon. It was just a machine, a crystal pillar tall as a building, pulsing with cold blue light. Cables spread from it like roots, connecting to every wall, every surface, every corner of the structure. This was the heart of the Hollow. T approached slowly, his boots making no sound in the airless room. Through his bond with Sira, he felt her distant presence, steady and warm. She was watching through his eyes, feeling through his heart. "I see it," she whispered across the stars. "The weapon of the Void Lords." T remembered the stories. The Void Lords were an ancient race that had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago. They had been afraid of other species, afraid of competition, afraid of losing their power. So they had built the Hollow, a weapon that did not kill bodies but destroyed minds, a weapon that made whole civilizations forget how to live. The Void Lords were gone now, destroyed by their own creation. But their weapon remained, still following its original command: make everyone alone. T stood before the crystal pillar. Up close, he could see images inside it, faces, millions of faces, the stored consciousness of every being the Hollow had ever consumed. They were not dead, not exactly. They were trapped, frozen in eternal loneliness. "Can they be saved?" T asked Sira. "I do not know," she admitted, "but if the Hollow is destroyed, they might be freed." T nodded. He reached out to touch the crystal. The moment his hand made contact, everything changed. The chamber disappeared. T found himself standing in absolute darkness, not the darkness of the dark passage, but something deeper, something alive. A voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "You do not belong here." T turned, but there was nothing to see. "Who are you?" "I am the Hollow. I am the end of connection. I am the final silence." The darkness pressed against T's mind. It was trying to find cracks, weaknesses, places where it could slip inside and break him. "You are alone," the voice said. "Everyone you loved is dead. Everyone you knew is gone. You have nothing. You are nothing." T felt the weight of those words. They were true. His grandmother was dead. His friends were dead. Sue, who had held his hands before he slept, was dead. Earth had moved on without him. He was a ghost from a forgotten time. The darkness found a crack. It pushed. "You survived 300 years," the voice continued. "But survival is not victory. You are empty inside. You just hide it better than others." T fell to his knees. The darkness wrapped around him like chains. He could not move. He could not think. He could only feel the weight of every lonely moment, every silent night, every year spent frozen and forgotten. Then he felt something else. Warmth, faint but real. Sira's voice came through the bond, soft and clear. "I am here, T. I am always here." He remembered her eyes, 4 silver stars watching him with wonder. He remembered her hand on his, cool and gentle. He remembered her words, "I think you are exactly what my empire needs." The crack in his mind began to heal. "You think I am empty," T said slowly, rising to his feet. "But you are wrong." The darkness paused. "What do you mean?" T closed his eyes and reached inside himself. He found his memories, his connections, his love. They were not gone. They had never been gone. They were with him always, woven into the fabric of his soul. His grandmother's hands, rough from cooking, the sound of her humming on cold mornings, the taste of her soup. Sue's laughter, her bright eyes, her promise to come back for him. Yuri's strength, her half-human heart, her mother's lessons passed down through blood and memory. Sira's hope, her fear, her trust in a stranger from a dead world. T opened his eyes. Light began to glow around him, soft at first, then brighter. "I have been alone," he said. "I have walked through darkness that should have destroyed me, but I never broke. Do you know why?" The hollow did not answer. It could not understand. "Because loneliness is not emptiness," T continued. "Solitude is not the end of connection. It is just another way of carrying the people we love." The light grew stronger. It pushed back the darkness inch by inch. "I carry my grandmother in my memories. I carry Sue in my heart. I carry Sira in my mind. And I carry every person who ever loved me, believed in me, or touched my life." He spread his arms wide. The light exploded from him, filling the chamber, burning through the darkness. "You tried to make me hollow, but I was never alone. I will never be alone." The hollow screamed. It was a terrible sound, the cry of something that had never known defeat. The darkness shattered like glass, falling away in pieces. T stood in the light, calm and steady. He walked to the crystal pillar and placed both hands on its surface. "Let them go," he commanded. The crystal cracked. Lines of light spread across its surface. The faces inside began to move, to stir, to wake. Millions of stolen souls, finally freed from their prison. The hollow died with a whisper. The machines went dark. The chamber fell silent. And then, for the first time in 10,000 years, the darkness stopped spreading. T fell to his knees, exhausted. Through the bond, he felt Sira crying. He felt her joy and relief and love all mixed together. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us all." T smiled weakly. "I had help." He found his way back to the last dawn. Yuri was waiting at the airlock, her eyes red from tears she would never admit. "You look terrible," she said. "I feel terrible," he admitted. She helped him inside, supporting his weight with her strong arms. Behind them, the hollow's core crumbled into dust, finally at peace. Captain D and Bora were still lost, but there was hope now. With the hollow destroyed, their stolen minds might return. It would take time, but time was something they finally had. The journey home was quiet. T slept most of the way, recovering his strength. Yuri sat beside him, reading her mother's old letters. Sometimes she would read them aloud, even though T was asleep. Maybe she was reading them for herself. Maybe she was reading them for her mother. Maybe it did not matter. When the last dawn reached the Velith homeworld, the whole empire was waiting. Ships lined up by the thousands, their lights flashing in celebration. Messages flooded every channel, praising the human who had done the impossible. People who had never seen Earth or met a human suddenly wanted to learn about their culture, their history, their way of enduring loneliness. Queen Sira met them at the landing bay. She walked straight to T and in front of her entire court, took his hands in hers. Her 4 eyes looked into his 2. "You came back," she said softly. "I promised," he replied. The court watched in stunned silence as their queen, proud and ancient, rested her head against the human's shoulder. Just for a moment. Just long enough for everyone to understand. The celebration lasted for weeks. T was called a hero, a savior, a legend. But he did not want glory. He asked only for simple things. A small house by the sea on a quiet planet. The right to visit Earth someday to see if cherry blossoms still bloomed. And permission to teach. Sira gave him everything he asked for. In the years that followed, T became a teacher. He traveled from world to world, showing different species how to carry their loved ones inside them. He taught them that solitude was not a prison. He taught them that the mind could endure anything if it held onto hope. Yuri often traveled with him. She never called it following. She called it partnership. But the way she looked at him told a different story. Sira visited whenever she could. Their bond remained strong across any distance. Sometimes they walked together on the beach near his house, watching alien waves touch alien sand. One evening, as 3 suns set on the horizon, Sira asked him a question. Do you ever regret it, waking up in our time, losing everything you knew? T thought about his grandmother, about Sue, about the Earth he remembered. Then he thought about Sira, about Yuri, about a galaxy that was finally learning to hope. I lost my past, he said slowly, but I found a future, and I found people worth carrying in my heart. Sira smiled. Her silver skin glowed in the sunset light. Then you are the richest human who ever lived. T laughed softly. Maybe, but I am also the hungriest. Did you bring dinner? Sira laughed too, and the sound was like music across the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, the hollow was just a memory. Somewhere, Captain D was waking up in a hospital, confused but whole. Somewhere, Bora was reading about humans again, eager to learn more. And on a quiet beach, on a peaceful planet, a man from a forgotten time sat with a queen from the stars. He had slept in solitude and awoken selected. But he had walked through darkness and emerged carrying light. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all.